Contour basics. That's what we're talking about here today. Welcome back, guys. My name is Sammy George, and this is our series on how to apply your Seint makeup in a step-by-step application. So if you are ready to talk about contour, this video is for you. Be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any part of our series. And as always, thanks for being here. Okay, friends, like I said, today we are talking about contour, and we're gonna keep it super basic. We can go into greater detail later, but let's just talk about how to get started. So there's a couple things to know. With your Seint IIID application, there are a lot of different contours to choose from. The great part about this is that your Seint artist will match you to your ideal contour shade, and things that they'll be looking at are like your skin tone, whether or not you have redness in the cheeks, different things like that, because we have neutrals, we have warm tones, and then we have cooler or ashier contour colors. So just some things to think about. If you feel like you have a lot of redness in your cheeks and you put on your contour and it makes it look more red or even orange, you need an ashier or a more cool toned contour to really balance that out and keep that redness at bay. Opposite that, if you put your contour on and it makes you feel washed out or even dead, for lack of a better word, you feel really gray, then you likely need a little bit more warmth in your contour. And you can check in with your artist, and I'm sure they will help you troubleshoot both your application and your contour color. But just know there are strategies to the color that we choose, as well as the application process. So let's talk the basics. What does contour do? Contour is what gives our face dimension. So right now I've already done step 1 and step 2, which was I color corrected the deepest points of color on my skin, and I put down my main highlight shade, which is also known as your foundation shade, to get good coverage and make sure that I'm matching my neck. But everything right now looks a little bit flat. Like, this is kind of the same look that you get with liquid foundation. You put it all over and then you have that flat effect to your face. That's where contour comes in. And while contour intimidates a lot of people, you can keep it really basic and just really create some natural shadow where we normally have it. The areas that we contour are gonna be our cheekbones, around the perimeter of the forehead, and the jawline. When we're talking just basics, those are the 3 areas that you want to start with, and that's going to help create that depth, that dimension. It's going to highlight those natural shadows that we have, and it's also going to sculpt and slim the face. So let's jump in. I've pulled out my contour and my contouring brush, which is known as the detail brush. I'm telling you, having the right tool will make this so much easier, and the detail brush is the ride or die Seint brush for contouring, and it's because of the shape. It allows you to really control your contour and keep it from being too wide or getting it too low. Having the right tool is gonna make a huge difference. Let's start with the area that people tend to be the most intimidated by or struggle with the most, and that's gonna be our cheekbone. If you're struggling to actually find your cheekbone, grab one of your tools, put it at the top of your ear and the outside corner of your mouth, and then roll it, and you'll feel this little ridge right here. That's where your cheekbone is. That's where your contour is gonna be applied. So this is kind of a little trick to find like that perfect application spot. Once you've found where to apply it, here's kind of what I recommend. We wanna go from the top of the ear to the outer corner of the eye, and this is the area on that top of the cheekbone where we're going to apply our contour. If we get too low or start to drag our contour down, it's almost gonna look like a 5 o'clock shadow, or it's actually gonna drag your face down, where the goal of contouring is really just to lift the face and slim out that cheekbone area. Also, how you put the product on the brush can make this application so much easier. Here's what you need to know. Contour is the driest of the highlight and contour products in your palette. And it's meant to be that way. So all that means is that when you go to apply, you are gonna have to pounce in with a little bit more pressure to get some product onto the brush. Speaking of brushes, again, I'm going back to the detail brush, and I always hold it on an angle. And now I'm gonna pounce into that contour. And what you're gonna see is that we have contour on this side, and our brushes here have no product on it. And here's why. Because when I apply it, starting at the top of my ear, remember I'm on the top of my cheekbone, and I start to just press it into that area, I'm leaving those top bristles with no product on it, so I can have a really slim, controlled line as opposed to a really thick line that I then have to blend. And you'll notice I started up by my ear. Wherever you press first is where the majority of your product is gonna deposit, and we want this to diffuse as we head down that cheekbone to the outer corner of our eye. So now that we've gotten our line, I'm gonna use those bristles that have no product on it kind of as my blending tool. And all I'm gonna do is flick up to diffuse that line. Because these are creams and they blend so easily, you can diffuse it as much or as little as you like. And now we have a sharp line underneath. I can press on that if I want to diffuse that a little bit, but I've blended it upward. We never want to blend our contour down. That's what's going to make our face look muddy. That's what's going to cause our face to drag down. We really want to keep this at the top of the ear, bringing it down to the outer corner of the eye, and just flicking that up until you like the depth of the color that you see. And when you put your blush right here on the top part, it's all going to marry together so beautifully. Now, if you feel like maybe you got your contour too low, okay, so let me go a little bit lower than I would like. You can easily clean this up. With creams, there's like no mistake with your makeup because they will continue to blend and you can easily diffuse out product as you go. All I'm gonna do is flip my brush over and tap the smallest amount of my main shade on there, and I'm just gonna flick on these, kind of the edge where I got it too low, to help diffuse that line if I feel like I went too low down on my face. And now we've cleaned up that area and we got our contour line right where we want it. If you ever feel like you go too low here, just go ahead underneath with that smallest amount of product and clean up that under area. And now you have a nice diffused, but a sharp enough line where you're creating that contrast and that natural shadow on the face. That's it for the cheekbone. It's really that easy. So let's move on to the next two steps, both of which are super simple. So let's start with the forehead. It doesn't really matter with the forehead where you get the product on the brush. Just go ahead and tap on, make sure that you have some product, and now start tapping it around the perimeter of your forehead. All we're gonna do is create a little bit of shadow and some more dimension here, but you can use contour as a trick. For me, I have a pretty deep set forehead. Like it's pretty large. I have a 4-finger, 5-finger forehead. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna place this around the perimeter of my forehead, but I am gonna bring it down just a little bit by the peaks of my eyebrow, because when we create shadow, we are playing the game of light and dark recedes. It makes things look smaller and slimmer. Now let's say you have a really small forehead, then you would just keep this up around the perimeter. What you wanna do though is after you've put it on, make sure you flick it up into the hairline. So if you have to move a little bit of your hair back, you wanna get it up into that hairline so that you don't see like a white line of skin across the top. It should just naturally really blend right into that hairline to keep things looking pretty seamless. Then if you notice that maybe your bottom line is a little bit harsh, you can just pull that down just a little bit to diffuse that line out. Here's another trick for foreheads. If you are somebody who has a maturing face and you're starting to get hollowing in the temple area like I am, don't put your contour in your temples. You'll see a lot of people teach contour as knowing the 3 of your face, and that's totally true. We're gonna contour basically in a 3 shape. However, if you have hollowing here and you add contour to that temple area, because dark recedes, it will make that hollow more prominent. Where if you still have a lot of plumpness in this area to your face and you want to slim it down, then you can bring your contour down a little bit lower into the temple area. The third and final area that we contour for our contouring basics is underneath the jawline. This will help slim your jawline and make it look a little bit more snatched, and it's super simple. Go ahead again and press into your contour, making sure you have some on your brush, and now start where you see this shadow behind your ear. Not on this front part of your face where you can see it. You want to keep it behind your ear and underneath your actual jawline. So you just run it behind the ear and under the jawline. Now, blend it down the neck. Again, we don't want any harsh lines. We want to keep it nice and blended. And that's it. We have contoured our forehead, our cheekbone, and our jawline, and it's honestly super simple. And it's the key to getting that dimension. It's actually the magical part of the 3D foundation system, is adding that dimension into your face with contour. There are 2 more areas that people commonly contour. It's their nose and underneath their lip, but we'll save detail contouring for another day. Be sure to check in next week as we talk about step 4, which is going to be adding a brightener, which is also just known as your concealer. As always, thank you guys so much for being here, and I'll see you again soon.